And welcome to another edition of The Bullet. My name is Paul Lathrop. I'm the Deputy Director of New Media for the Second Amendment Foundation. Joining me today from the Gulf Coast of Louisiana, Rob Morse, who I convinced to stay above water today. Rob, thanks for coming on the show, man.
I took one for the team, Paul. Glad to help.
All right. And I got to say, just on a personal note, today, or not today, this week I found out just how much fun being underwater is. I've just been having a blast this week, and Rob, think that now we got something more to talk about every time we talk.
I'll trade pictures with you. Sounds great.
All right, let's go ahead, and I gotta. But as we get started, let everybody know that if you want to comment on anything we're talking about in the show, if you're watching the Polite Society Podcast Facebook or YouTube feeds, go ahead and comment there. If you're catching us anywhere else, go to the Twitter machine and tweet with the hashtag #TheBullet. We'll get those comments as well, get them on the air, and we'll talk about your comments as we go live. Rob, first one, I didn't get a chance to put this one on the air on Monday. It was out there, but I didn't do enough research on it. But we've got a story out of El Paso where there was a 18-year-old that started shooting up a mall,
Yes.
and it turns out a concealed carry permit holder, or license to carry holder as they call them in Texas, stopped the guy, and then an off-duty police officer who was working showed up, and they worked together to treat the wounded, and that included the attacker. This is another instance, Rob, of a good guy with a gun does something the other side says never ever ever happens. A good guy with a gun stops a bad guy with a gun from doing evil things.
Well, and what somebody pointed out, this could have been mass murder.
Oh yes.
It looks like this, and I think he was 16. I think the murderer was 16 years old. Um, he was okay. He gets in a fight and he just starts shooting at anybody close to him. Wow. Um, Three people were hit. One of them died. The one who died, by the way, was ran into the back of a store and I think was well out of sight. The videos of this show people running as soon as they hear. Look, sense to me. But the defender stayed there, and it sounds like he had some trauma training. Paul, you used to be an EMT. I've taken a. That's a drop in the. My 3 or 4 classes are a drop in the bucket to what you could do with your hands. But when you run away, you're harder for first responders to find. That was the kid who died. So everyone else treated promptly, including the murderer, made it to the hospital and survived.
Yes. Well, I'm gonna look.
Paul, do you have an open mic? I'm hearing a lot of background sound.
One moment, I'm working on that. This window is not easy to close. You don't
Oh,
off.
it's
It's the wind
wow, it's
outside.
nice to be in the tropics, huh?
It's not easy to close windows that are always open.
Open.
So, um,
Yeah, okay. I get it.
and unless the rain comes in sideways, you leave your windows open. But
There you go.
anyway, speaking speaking as a former EMT, look, I understand if you get shot, you're going to run,
Yeah.
and you're going to try to get away from the danger. So I'm not going to fault somebody who is trying to get away from somebody that was shooting at them. Um,
Well, but Paul, okay? Let's. I'm going to pull this back to something a little more commonplace.
mhm.
Some of us have trauma training. Even more of us know what to do if someone chokes. you're in a restaurant, somebody gets up, they can't, you ask if they're okay, they can't speak, they put their hands toward their throat and they move to the bathroom. And I was taught, follow them. If it's a woman, follow her right into the stall until she yells at you to get out. Because when we think we're going to choke, we think we're going to also throw up, and we go and seek a place to do that, people die in the bathroom because there was no one there to clear their airway. Like here, someone ran, if you fell down behind a counter, if there's a shooting, the store staff aren't going, oh my, there's someone behind the counter, I wonder if they need help. They're in the back room until they hear the all clear.
Yep. Absolutely. And I'm getting comments, and I understand. I have to apologize in advance. Looks like the streams going out are sketchy. So
okay. Sorry, guys.
Yeah. And my take, and there's somebody on Facebook that's also saying, Billy Cummings is saying on Facebook side that the upload is a little sketchy, and that's internet down here, and I'm sorry.
I'll tell you what, you want to degrade my video? That might give you a little bit better bandwidth.
I will give it a try, and also keep in mind, everybody, that or Rob, keep in mind that when the comments go up, I'll read them, so you don't necessarily.
Right.
But let's go ahead and let's move on to our next one. A Republican measure
to Florida.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A Republican measure to allow people to carry concealed weapons without a permit in Florida continues to move forward in the legislature, even though the bill has received broad public opposition, including from gun rights groups. This one toasts my cookies. We're insulted by this bill, said Bob White, chairman of the Republican Liberty Caucus of Florida. It's a slap in the face to the Second Amendment community. Permitless bills in the House and Senate wouldn't allow people to openly carry firearms. For gun rights activists speaking out against this measure, it means they're not true constitutional carry proposals, as Governor Ron DeSantis and other Republicans leaders have promised. Rob, in my opinion, people that are against the permitless concealed carry, they're going to lose permitless carry, period, because they're letting the perfect be the enemy of the good. We did not lose our rights in one step in 1934. We did not lose our rights in one step with the 1968 Gun Control Act. It's been 1,000 cuts to get from where it started to where it's at now. These are people that are throwing a temper tantrum because we don't get everything back all at once.
Paul, maybe, and you and I know people who call themselves 2A advocates for whom nothing is ever good enough. They raise money constantly saying they are the one true non-compromising organization. Totally wrong. But this might be playing poker. Okay. Yeah, this isn't everything we want. I don't know if we should settle for it. When in secret you go, we'll take our slice and come back for more. But that Whipple on the other side goes, look, it gives the Democrats and the moderate Republicans a way to say, yes, it was a compromise bill. That's the nature of politics, Paul.
Yeah, and I'm really. If you're in Florida, get a hold of your legislator. Tell them that you support permitless concealed carry, and you expect when it goes through the next time they support permitless open carry.
But you do want them to vote for it now.
Yes, absolutely. It's a step closer to freedom. And speaking of a step closer to freedom, you want to talk about West Virginia, bud?
Sure I do. It's getting, as you mentioned, another drop of freedom, and that's how we win. The West Virginia Senate voted 84-14 to pass the Campus Self-Defense Act. That ensures that law-abiding adults retain their right to carry concealed, to exercise armed self-defense even when they cross on or near the property of a college campus. The bill now goes to the West Virginia Governor Jim Justice's desk for his signature. So we should be through all the legislative hurdles. Now, we have to remind everybody, Governor Justice switched parties from Democrat to Republican, and now we get to see the real color of his stripes. Current state law doesn't prohibit of a defense campus, but it allows educational institutions to expel or terminate staff or students they carry. And this bill would say, no, not so fast. You can't make denying institutional right a condition of employment as a state agency. Officially licensed to carry a firearm shouldn't be prevented from doing so just because they're on the, on the campus. This affects every truck driver who wants to do a. Think about that for a minute.
Mm-hmm. It affects everybody ancillary to the university. Everybody.
Right. I don't know their legislative schedule, but 84-14 is kind of a message that says we can override a veto.
It does. It does. Well, and what I want to comment here is not everyone that has a D behind their name is an enemy of freedom. Not everybody that has an R behind their name is an ally of freedom. Justice did go from the Democrat to the Republican. Let's see how much he wants to back freedom. And I'm guessing West Virginia voters are just going to have to hold him accountable if he doesn't allow freedom to happen. Because it certainly looks like the legislature is going to send him more freedom.
Isn't that interesting? We are seeing a big sort. We're seeing some states, you and I can name them off our hands, California, New York, Maryland, New Jersey, New Mexico, Rhode Island, Connecticut. Yeah, who are going, ooh, the court gave you some freedom. Let's see if we can restrict that. Meanwhile, there are other states that are going, why are we getting in the way of honest, law-abiding individuals being able to be their own first responders? How does that make sense? On to, New Mexico?
Yeah, let's go ahead and talk.
Comments?
Yeah, no, well, we're getting comments, and I'm gonna address this right now. We are getting comments that the stream is still bad. It's good on the recording end. So what I'm gonna do as soon as we're done recording, I'm gonna upload a recording to Facebook, YouTube, everywhere we broadcast. There will be the recording, which is much better quality than I think you're getting on the stream. So it will be out there. Let's talk. Yeah, Rob.
Hold on, Paul. Not every beach house is really as high tech as your studio.
Well, this is. I'm telling you, this is better than what it could have been, and I've got to thank. Bob and Kathy Jackson and Don Stelnecker for doing a lot to make this happen. This took. We're not third world here, but you can smell it from here.
You can see it from there.
Yes, you can. Let's talk about New Mexico, bud.
Okay. The House Judiciary Committee on Friday approved a bill, and it imposed a 14-day waiting period on all firearms purchases. The legislation won't enhance, that's their version of the word enhance, the existing FBI background check process in any way. It'll only delay our ability to exercise our right to buy a firearm. Criminals don't adhere to cooling off periods. They go down to the street corner. This restrictive measure heads to the full House for consideration. The obvious thing to do is, if you're in New Mexico, call your legislature and tell them to oppose it. It's HB 100. The Judiciary Committee also took public testimony on a substitute for a bill that would ban the manufacture, sale, purchase, and possession of many semi-automatic firearms simply because they have detachable magazines. You realize that's unconstitutional. We know that's unconstitutional. The Supreme Court told us modern semi-automatic firearms are handguns with a detachable magazine. They're covered by the Second Amendment. Oh, I'm sorry. More than 10 rounds, unless you're a cop. 15 rounds if it's a fixed magazine. This is getting silly. Oh, and a ban of 50 caliber firearms. The current owner of any of these items will have to register them with the DPS, Public Safety, prior to March 1. But next year. Okay, so not as crazy as it sounds. To maintain, or they have to transfer them out of state, and if they fail to do, they're a felon. Wow, Paul, this is serious.
I want to break these up. The 14-day waiting period. Rob, you and I have reported on this before. In recent studies, the time to crime from when a pistol or from a firearm is purchased, on average, even in high crime area, is years, not weeks. And so that part of it is absolutely useless. The only thing it'll do is if a single mom, if a young mother's getting out of a bad marriage, getting out of an abusive situation, she goes and makes the break, gets a restraining order, all that does is keep her vulnerable for 2 more weeks.
For 2 weeks.
That's
okay. Here's you put down 1.5. I'm going to add another 5 on it. That's true, even if it's your daughter that has a problem. You loan her your gun. She can't get her own, even though she already has one. Mm-hmm. It could be my 3rd gun. I've got 2 rifles, but something's coming. I need to carry. Oh no, Mr. Bowles, that concealed carry firearm. You might do something that you wouldn't do with all your existing firearms.
Yeah, it
sounded good to Bloomberg.
Yeah, absolutely, it did. The other one is limiting rounds. The average, and Rob, you're even these days you're more versed on it than I am because you do self-defense gun stories and pay attention as you write them. There are home invasions quite often have more than one invader. And under stress, first shots aren't always absolutely perfect. Matter of fact, they rarely are. How many it's wonderful that they know how many rounds I'm going to need before I do.
The average number of criminals involved with a home invasion is over 2. Who breaks in, the guy who's watching just around the corner, and the getaway driver. Okay, each one of those guys is carrying guns. Why should my wife be told you can only have 10 rounds? That's scary. We're telling our lovers to defend themselves in a situation that we'd never ask a police officer to be in. That's crazy. It is not as if the bad guys obey the rules.
Yeah, you're absolutely 100% right there. Looks like we got about 11 minutes left.
Well, Paul, I wanted to say thank you for this show. Because for lots of people, they think they are so intrinsically law-abiding. They think that, if we write a law that says you can only have 1 bullet in your gun, then everybody's going to turn into Barney Fife. Because that's what they would do. Actually, they go, no, maybe I'd carry 2, but everyone else shouldn't. And that's not how the world got to start thinking like a criminal if you want to understand what laws do.
Oh, yeah, because let's face it, criminals do not now and are not going to in the future follow laws. And that includes limitations on if they outlawed all semi-automatic handguns, how long do you think it would take before the criminals no longer had semi-automatic handguns?
Forever.
Yeah.
If you can move tens of millions of people across our border, billions of dollars of drugs every year, you can move all the firearms you want. Paul, do you remember when and the news has stopped doing it because it is so shocking? People would just have a cell phone camera listening to the gunfire at night in Chicago. They're getting all the ammunition they want.
Oh yeah, yeah. Well, and let's remember, Memphis used to be called. What was the name of it? Mogadishu on the Mississippi.
Right.
These inner cities, the criminals are doing whatever the heck they want. They're
right.
Yeah,
well,
it's
Paul. I've been on interviews with gun prohibitionists, and I say, "Are you crazy? Do you think the criminals obey this?" And they go, "Well, they might." And I go, "Yes, they might, but in fact, what you're doing is being the good guy. You think that's okay. I don't, because we defend ourselves millions of times. It's almost as if you want us to face the bad guys unarmed. I think if there's a crime, I think that's a crime."
Yeah, absolutely. I think what we're going to do, Rob, because we're continuing to get messages that the upload is not working, the live stream is not working so well. We're good on recording, though. What I would like you to do, we're going to go ahead and end with this one early, but as we start the process of ending it, tell everybody about your podcast and anything else you want to plug, bud.
Well, I'm here with Paul on the Daily Bullet. Sometimes I'm on the Weekly Bullet. I'm regularly on the Polite Society podcast. Those are SAF events. I have my own little podcast, Self-Defense Gun Stories, once a week, 20 minutes into your pocket. I also write at the slowfacts.wordpress.com blog. Get a couple up there. Write the Armed Citizens column at AmmoLand. Paul, it's been fun.
Absolutely. On my end, that's going to do it for us today. Check back Friday when I expect to be doing a Legal Friday with Alex Uli. We're expecting a ruling from St. Benitez sometime this week about the California assault weapons ban. I'm certain we're going to be talking about that, whether or not there's a decision. Plus, we've got all kinds of other legal things to talk about. But that's going to be it until Friday. Check back in then. And until then, everybody, thanks for watching. Stay safe, and we'll see you next time. Why are we not stopping recording?